In the South China Sea, the rusted BRP Sierra Madre sits grounded on Ayungin Shoal, a remote reef within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Once a U.S. Navy ship, it now serves as a Philippine military outpost, a symbol of sovereignty in contested waters. Filipino Marines endure harsh conditions aboard, tasked with preventing China from seizing the shoal. The ship's presence is crucial. Ayungin Shoal is a gateway to resource-rich reed bank and a strategic military position. Regular resupply missions are vital, but Chinese Coast Guard vessels frequently harass and block them, escalating tensions. China's aggressive tactics, including water cannons, turn each supply run into a high-stakes standoff. The Sierra Madre's decaying hull is a front line in a David and Goliath struggle for control of the South China Sea. Every confrontation here is a reminder of the fragile peace and the daily fight to maintain Philippine sovereignty. The standoff at Ayungin Shoal is part of a broader battle over the South China Sea. The Philippines claims the area under international law, specifically UNCLOS, which grants rights within 200 nautical miles of its coast. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled in Manila's favor, rejecting China's sweeping 9-line claim. China, however, insists on historical rights, building artificial islands and military bases to enforce its view. This clash pits a rules-based order against China's power-driven approach, with smaller nations caught in the middle. The world's legal system says one thing, China's actions say another. At stake is not just territory, but the principle of whether law or force will decide the future of the seas. Imagine China sends a fleet to tow away the BRP Sierra Madre, claiming it's removing a navigational hazard. Filipino Marines, armed and determined, face a dilemma: resist and risk conflict, or stand down and lose the outpost. China would likely use its Coast Guard, framing the move as law enforcement, not military aggression, a classic gray zone tactic. But removing the Sierra Madre would be a blatant seizure of territory, violating Philippine sovereignty and international law. Success would cement China's control, but the risks are huge. A firefight could erupt, triggering unpredictable escalation. The world would see that power, not law, rules these waters. For China, it's a gamble with enormous stakes. For the Philippines, it's a fight for survival. If China tries to tow the Sierra Madre and violence erupts, the consequences would be immediate and severe. A firefight could draw in the Philippine military, risking a wider naval clash despite being outgunned. The economic fallout would be swift, trade disrupted, investment fleeing, and local industries crippled. Other Southeast Asian nations would be alarmed, fearing China's willingness to use force sets a dangerous precedent. ASEAN would likely be paralyzed, unable to respond decisively. The South China Sea is a global trade artery. Conflict here would send shockwaves through supply chains and energy markets. What starts as a local clash could quickly escalate into a regional crisis. The world's attention would turn to this remote shoal, now a flashpoint for global security. The fate of a rusted ship could threaten the stability of the entire Indo-Pacific. The critical question: how would the United States respond? Bound by a mutual defense treaty, a Chinese attack on the Sierra Madre could trigger U.S. intervention. American warships and jets entering the fray would raise the risk of direct conflict between superpowers. Allies like Japan and Australia would likely back the Philippines, while Europe would face pressure to condemn China. The world would be forced to choose sides, redrawing geopolitical lines. The Sierra Madre is more than a ship. It's a test of whether disputes are settled by law or by force. Its fate could unravel decades of peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. A local act of aggression could ignite a global crisis. The world is watching because what happens here could define the century.